Hi everyone, Leah here. So this is going to be the first video in a series where I talk about my process of making a webcomic. I'm going to get right into the video, but if you want to check out my webcomic, the link is in the description below. So I can't exactly show you a full-on recent script of my comic, aka one that I haven't thumbnailed yet because of, spoilers, but I can show you previous episode scripts from earlier episodes of my comic. Still spoilers, but hopefully not too much, so that you can see some real life scripts. And also I'm going to make a mock script during this video, and next video I'll be using that mock script to show the thumbnailing process. So for reference, I'm not claiming to be an expert. While I've dabbled in making little, mostly fan comics in the past, Beneath the Camphor Tree, my webcomic, is the first original real serious comic that I've worked on. So today, and in fact during most of this series, if not all of it, I'm basically just showing my personal process, and this isn't meant to be taken as the only way to do things or even the best way to do things. It's just my personal process of how I do things. So how do you script an episode for a webcomic? I'm not going to go too much into plot or overarching story in this video, as that is its own beast, but I will go over what I think about when it comes to scripting an episode. First things first, the comic format that I use personally is a vertical scrolling format seen as in comics on Tapas or Webtoon, or I think Manta Comics is another one. And with the nature of this kind of comic, you mainly think from up to down, meaning unlike traditional comics, you're not often thinking about left to right or right to left as far as panels go. That's not to say there aren't exceptions to the rule, but generally, in my experience, vertical scrolling comics mean you start at the top of a long scrolling page and you scroll downwards until you reach the bottom. So here's an example of an early script in my comic. You'll notice that I break it down into panels. This is because I am both the artist and the author of my comic, so as I write, I can also visualize what the panels consist of as I'm writing the script. If you are just the author and not drawing the script, I'd advise you to script a little looser, as in not panel 1, panel 2, but more the general idea of what's going on. To give your artist some artistic freedom, because when you're even when I go to thumbnail the episode, I often change what I originally thought, because as I go to thumbnail and draw it out in actual visual form, I'll realize that something I had envisioned earlier on during the script won't work the way I envisioned it while drawing it out. In an episode of a vertical scrolling comic, it is important to start and end your comic well. This is because when you open the episode, the first panel or two are what you see. You don't see a full page of panels or a double spread pages. You just maybe see the top of a panel or a couple if they're narrow panels. Some people start a comic script or an episode with some panels from the previous episode's end. I don't always do this because unless it's an important moment that bears repeating, quote unquote, I usually just pick up where I left off or do a variation of that ending moment from the previous episode, so it doesn't look like I just copied the panels over, although I have done that pretty often as well. With ending a comic, or a comic episode I should say, you don't have to end in a cliffhanger per se, but it does help to leave the readers wanting more. I have found the episodes where I do this, leaving the readers with a question or with curiosity or with excitement for what's about to happen, will make them excited to come back for more. The episodes where it ties off neatly at the end of the episode often means the readers are content enough, mentally, that they don't always are as eager to come back the next time. Not saying they don't, I'm just saying you want to leave them wanting more. And since webcomics are usually serialized, aka an episode a month or an episode every week or so, you want readers to come back with each update. I'll give more detail on this during the mock writing portion of this video. Another thing to note about my scripting process is that because I'm the artist and can visualize what's happening, I don't need to put too much detail into the panel descriptions. If you're writing for a separate artist, as in you have an artist who's adapting your script, it would be good to give more cues so they know more of what you're looking for visually. Alright, so here's a blank page. I'm going to pretend that we're writing about a lost princess who wakes up in the woods and is discovered by a strange creature. So presumably the previous episode ended with her realizing she was lost, perhaps even with a shadow presented behind her or a strange shape, implying to the readers that not only is she in danger from being lost, but there's something following her. In this episode that we're currently going to script, that's a pretty climactic moment. And important to this little story. So we're going to recap it a tiny bit. But as I said before, I would warn you not to recap with too many panels because sometimes readers, I've noticed, will get bored if they feel like half the episode they're reading is just a recap. It's like when you watch a TV show and the recap of the previous episode takes way too long. So I'd stick to just a panel or two so they're reminded of where we left off and that this is an important moment. All right, so this is the live recording section of the video, and I apologize because this is not going to be scripted. I have no idea what to write. So we're going to go through this together. So panel 1, the princess. I always like to start with like wide eyes, like a close-up shot, and then go wide because I feel like, not always, sometimes I go wide then small as far as like wide shot, narrow shot, medium shot, close-up shot, because sometimes that is what the story calls for. In this moment, I feel drawn to saying we're going to start with like, because we've already established, as I said in the previous episode, that she's lost at the end of the last episode. So we don't need to establish like, oh, she's in the woods, she's lost. We know that already if they've read the previous episode. We want to recap the emotional impact of her realizing that she's lost. So the princess's eyes are wide. And I often will do a mix of prose and like traditional script, like dialogue with my scripting because I think in prose oftentimes when it comes to scripting. So that's why I'll write it out like the princess's eyes are wide. I don't just write princess eyes wide, or I don't even know how you script a comic in the technical form like in traditional publishing, but this is how I do it. So panel 2, I'm going to widen it a little bit more. So her face from the front, and I'm thinking kind of with this script that I'm adding a little more detail than I would just so you guys see what I'm doing, but also so that, say I'm writing for an artist, they will know kind of what I'm looking for. And I'm hopefully going to keep it loose enough that there is some freedom when going to the thumbnailing stage, so you or the artist can have a little bit more artistic freedom there. So her face from the front, shocked and scared. And I think at this point we should go wide, establishing shot. I apologize, my spelling is horrible, so please bear with me. Wide establishing shot of her standing in the forest. Hold on, let me think right now. So here's the thing, like as a side note, when it comes to scripting and thumbnailing, it is not a quick process for me because it's the process I'm thinking the most. It's the process I cannot listen to music or a show while doing because I literally have to think my way through it. I cannot just like put on music or a show and just like with drawing, like the sketch phase and especially the line art and coloring phase, I can just kind of mindlessly go through it. Most of the time with the scripting and thumbnailing stage, I really have to concentrate and I'm always going back and I'm redoing things and I'm like, oh, is this the right way to do it? No, I want to do it this way instead. Or no, that previous way was the best way to do it. So it's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of just making sure you're doing it the way it's meant to be done and doing it in a way that hopefully you can adjust later on during the thumbnailing stage. So a wide establishing shot with her standing in the forest. I had said in the previously that there was a shadow following her. So I want to follow up with that. No, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll leave that more mysterious. Like people are going to be left wondering, what was that shadow? Is that going to come into play this episode? Is she going to figure out that something was following her? Because this is kind of starting the episode from her point of view, specifically, like we are seeing things almost from her, not from her literal point of view, like not from her POV, but from her like emotional point of view. So she doesn't know something's following her at this point. So I should wait for more like suspense. People are going to have to wait to see what happens with that shadow. So a wide establishing shot of her standing in the forest. And I should also preface this by saying this is going to be a very cliche story because I don't have time to like draw it out and make it really good. I'm just kind of winging it, and my first drafts are always horrible. So we're just going to go with it. I'm just showing you my process. So panel 4, let's see, what should we do? I think, so there's also lots of pauses when I do it. So if there's a pause and a long silence, I apologize, but it's because I'm thinking and I'm going to try to think out loud, but I don't know if I'm going to do it every time because my thoughts are not always organized. Thanks, ADHD. Okay, so wide establishing shot of her standing in the forest. I think I'm going to do a foot, like she steps forward, close up on her feet. She's nervous, so she pauses. And that's the thing about scripting and with thumbnailing is that with a comic, it's not quite the same as animation where you're not like showing 24 frames per second. But with a comic, if you're showing a slow scene, you need to show every beat of that scene, every movement. Not every movement, like not the breathe in, breathe out, unless it's really important that you show the breathe in, breathe out. But I find if you want a slow moment, like this is a very slow moment. She's realizing she's lost. She's looking around the forest. So she's going to, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to slow it down. So I want to show many movements to show this is happening slowly. She's kind of coming to her bearing. She's realizing what's happening. She's probably, maybe she's not that smart. I don't know. So she pauses, kind of a medium shot of her standing. So I was not meant to write that. So medium shot of her standing. Let's show full body so we can see that she's not walking. She seems frozen in fear. So this is the part where, because I don't want this to be super long because I don't have time for that. So what we're going to do is we are going to bring in the shadow element, that creature element that we kind of hinted at the last episode. So at this point, she is going to take another step. And this is going to be a little bit wider of a shot. And we hear, and I'm going to just put it here because it's not going to be a panel, it's just going to be a noise. We hear a crack, like a piece, like a twig snapping. That's not how you spell that. Okay. Panel 8, she freezes again. Panel 9, she looks down at her feet. Panel 10, and I'll go into more detail what this actually looks like in my head when I go to thumbnail in the next episode. In the next video. So panel 10, I think what I would like her to do at this point is she's looking for a twig. Like, did she just step on a twig? She's looking for confirmation is what I'm thinking, that she just made that noise. It's not something else in the woods that made that noise. So we're going to have an over the shoulder or bird's eye view shot of her looking down, and there's no twigs in sight. She's standing on soft moss. And then panel 11, we see her face. And again, this is really slowing it down because this is like supposed to be a scary, suspenseful moment, and I want to really take my time to tell that so that she can, we feel what she's feeling, we think what she's thinking, we're experiencing it as she's experiencing it, So we see her face. She looks kind of like she's taking in a breath. Looks like she's kind of taking in a breath. Like she's about to hyperventilate or something because she knows now she didn't make that noise. What did? So panel 12, let's say, so it's going to be a side side view of her face. And I'm going to add another creak crack sound behind her. And then panel 13, again, this is a really short episode. I don't do episodes this short generally. Like my episodes are usually 35 to 45 to maybe 50 panels long. So I would do more in an episode than this personally, but this is just an example of how I script. So panel 13, we're going to show a side view, so kind of widening out the camera, side view of her full body, and there's she's in shadow now. And she's in shadow, full shadow now. So I should add up here that note she's in a glen or clearing. Is that what a glen is? Clearing that allows for some sunlight to come down. So that way when later on we know, like when she's in shadow, it's like, did a cloud just go over me, or is it a monster? So she's in full shadow now. So we see the shadow. Panel 14, front view, so we can see what's behind her. We see a wide shot. Because we've already established there was a shadow, like that suspenseful part. Now we want to reveal it. You don't always have to reveal it in the next episode, but for the sake of this, I'm going to reveal that there's something behind her. So front view, wide shot. Let's see. She's frozen in fear. That seems to be a status she does a lot. Frozen in fear. God, I had a thought. I don't remember what it was. Cast in shadow, and there's a creature standing between the trees. No, it would stand outside the trees if it was casting a shadow. There's a creature standing. Actually, you know what would be better than this? Okay, I have a better idea. Hold on. I'm gonna. What am I trying to do? Oh yeah, so she slowly starts turning around. I want to make this more suspenseful. So panel 15, she looks behind her over her shoulder. Panel 16, her eyes widen, close-up shot. Panel 17, maybe we even see the monster in the reflection of her eyes. We see the monster in the reflection of her eyes. Panel 18, she screams. Panel 19, she falls backwards. Panel 20, this is getting a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. She lands on the ground. Panel 21, now we see behind her, she's lying on the ground. The camera is closer to her, back looking upwards at a large monster towering above her. And that's how the episode is going to end. Okay, so that is our script, and next video I will be working on the thumbnails. I know that script wasn't the most amazing thing in the world, but hopefully it showed a little insight into my process, and hopefully you got something out of it. I'm going to be back hopefully next week with a thumbnailing video where I take the script we just made and I'm going to thumbnail it so you can live, like in real time, so you can see my process. Yeah, so anyway, if you like this video, please like, subscribe, come back for more. I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited to be back and making videos again, and I will see you next time. Have a great week.